Hi, Table Beth. So last week when I started my video by saying that I was going to make my videos shorter, at least five of you sent me emails saying, please don't make your videos shorter. We want them longer. Two Jews, three opinions. Even if a Jew were on a single deserted island, he or she would make two shuls, one to go to and one they would never step foot in. So I know I can't satisfy all of you. I'll try to make it halfway in between. This will be longer than last week, shorter than the week before that. It'll have three components: a little bit of a shul update, a piece of my thinking right now, and then a meditation. Okay, shul update. First of all, I miss you. And we're getting close-ish to the notion of our being able to do some kind of in-person something as a community. We're not there yet, but I feel that there's going to be a time soon where this video will be some version of "I'll see you tomorrow" in shul. We're not there yet. I wanted you to know of two things that are afoot. Um, at this last week's board meeting and executive committee meeting, I shared an idea that we then developed even further in our senior staff meeting, and that is as we continue to think about the high holidays coming up this year without having, obviously, all the information that we're going to need to figure out what we need to do, we want to be really planful. We've had preliminary conversations on how to be planful, and now we're turning that into a three-part task force that I want you to know is happening, particularly if you want to help out in any component of it. One part of the task force is going to be focusing on logistics, becoming even more masters of our campus than we are right now. What are all the different ways that we could possibly utilize our campus, indoors and outdoors, so that whatever the guidelines are by August 1 or September 1, we can make sure that to offer as many people in our community some version of a high holiday experience. Might it be in groups of 10 or 20 or 50 or 80 or 100? We don't know. But we may have to invest in some new components, tenting, technology to make it happen. We may be asking you for some financial support to do that, but that's going to be one task force. A second task force is liturgy. Liturgy, the words of the davening. Not all of you come, when services begin at 8:45 or 9 in the morning and stay till Adon Olam, but many of you come and spend more time in the synagogue on high holidays than you would on a regular Shabbat. If we're doing this in Zoom or if we're doing this in person, I just can't imagine that we're going to be even attempting a 5-hour full liturgy high holiday experience. You wouldn't tolerate it. I don't even know if I'd want to lead it. So if we have to take our high holiday liturgical experience and condense it into a 60-minute something, a 90-minute something, some Avinu Malkeinu, some Torah reading, some shofar blast, some Unatana Tokef, what would that look like? What are the most creative ways we can utilize our extraordinary machzor? And so we're going to be focusing on that, and Rabbi Chorny is going to be leading that part of the task force. The third task force, which is going to inform the first two, but it's also going to have conversations independently, are big ideas. In addition to thinking about just how can we package a good high holiday experience on Zoom or in groups of 30 or 40 people on that day, what if we started from scratch and said, what is the best and highest way we can celebrate the Jewish New Year through the lens of repentance this year, given all of the restrictions? Maybe we think of something that would never occur to us if we were, quote unquote, just trying to repackage the experience in smaller chunks. And we're going to have some really creative and inventive minds on that task force. I'm hoping to lead that sub-task force. And hopefully we'll have some material to share with the congregation as June turns into July and we have more information about what the holidays are actually going to look like. So just know that's happening. I also wanted you to know of something that's happening. There's a little bit of a risk that I'm sharing this with you in advance because I don't know the outcome of these conversations, but in the spirit of transparency, I wanted to share with you that, as you know, up until now, the clergy of Temple Beth Am have made the decision that on Shabbat and holidays, except for the Pesach Seder, and except for the one Shabbat that we couldn't go into the building at all and Rabbi Schatz did a Zoom service from home, our Shabbat and holiday davening have been via the live stream. Passive. You experience it passively. We have no idea who's there when we're leading it from the sanctuary, but we felt that was the most Shabbat and Yontif safe way of doing it. We are having a conversation with the ritual committee on Sunday night to explore whether or not Temple Beth Am should move partially or totally to a Zoom-based davening on Shabbat and Yontif because the live stream lacks a sense of in real-time community. One counter argument that I know is being made already is because so much of our week is already spent on Zooming, there's something lovely about not Zooming on Shabbat. It actually feels very Shabbistic in some way, some people have told me, to quote unquote just watch the live stream from the sanctuary and not be on a Zoom call with all these different faces because Monday to Friday is filled with Zooming. So there's no one right answer, but particularly as bar bat mitzvahs continue to come on the calendar and we trying to find the most inventive ways possible to make those celebrations happen, we're going to consider it. The answer still might be no, but I wanted to share with you in full transparency that we are going to look at it and discuss it as a ritual committee and as a set of clergy on Sunday night. That's the end of the synagogue update. Okay, now some of the thoughts that are on my mind. This is a somewhat expanded version of something I shared in Daily Minyan this morning and that I give to you as we are still on this day, the 43rd day of the Omer. Why is this day significant on the Jewish calendar? Well, it wasn't until about 53 years ago. In 1966 or 65 or 64, any year before this, this was just another day of the Omer, just about a week before Shavuot. But in 1967, as part of the Six-Day War, when the IDF conquered the old city of Jerusalem, and the phrase Har Habayit Bi'adenu, the Temple Mount is in our hands, and Jews once again had access for the first time to seeing the Kotel and to living with the Jewish flag over our heads in the city of Jerusalem. There were elements in the Jewish community that said this should be a chag, this should be a holiday. This should be a holiday on which we say Hallel. It should be a holiday in which we say Hallel with a bracha. That is our matbea. That's how we handle it at Temple Beth Am. We say the longer Yontif version of Psukei de Zimra of Psalms, not the weekday. And we omit some things that normally would be said but are omitted on joyful days, and we say Hallel with a bracha. I know of no other date on the Hebrew calendar that produces the most diametrically opposed feelings about how we should celebrate it than Yom Yerushalayim. That's what it's called, Jerusalem Day, Yom Yerushalayim. Very few people who have heard of the holiday are neutral about it. There are a lot of people who don't even know about it. But if you heard about it, you're probably not neutral. Some people would say this is an extraordinary, joyful day celebrating the miracle of the Jewish return to Jerusalem and the ability to daven at the Kotel and to populate the old city and to have Jewish control over what has been our capital for centuries, even for the millennia that we were not able to actually be there. And it's worth every amount of celebration that we can muster. And some believe that Yom Yerushalayim represents a catastrophe beginning the era of occupation and the subjugation of Palestinian residents of Jerusalem. And you know all of the bullet points that someone could add in that direction. I'm trying to lay out both sides as apolitically as possible. Both sides are worthy and real Jewish views amongst people who are committed to Zionism. And that makes for an interesting question in terms of how you should approach it liturgically. How can you say Hallel if you believe that the day that Jerusalem was conquered set Israel up for a demographic and moral catastrophe, on the one hand? On the other hand, how could you not say Hallel when the Jews reclaimed King David's city and the spot where King Solomon built his temple and the spot where the Babylonians and the Romans kicked us out of? I tried to say something this morning at Daily Minyan as apolitical as possible on a very, very political day. And some of you know my thoughts on these issues. I spoke about them when I came back from my encounter trip, and I'm happy to talk about them more, but just not in this video. Here's an apolitical view of this day. I have lived the entirety of my life in an era that took for granted that Jerusalem was a Jewish city and that I, as a Jew, had political and logistical access to it. I've taken for granted, having kind of grown up in a middle to upper middle class family that could, if we needed to, get on a plane on any day and travel to Israel tomorrow. I've never lived my life in an era where I ached for Yerushalayim and couldn't get there. Doesn't mean I was always there, but as you know, Jerusalem is the centerpiece of my Jewish identity. We're all living in a version of that era right now. This is the first time in my life where no matter how much I want to, I could not see the Kotel tomorrow or the day after that. In an infinitesimally small way that does not suggest they are anywhere close to one another on size of the issue, I identify with the ache of our ancestors who wanted to reach out and touch Yerushalayim and couldn't. They couldn't get there. As you know, so many in our community, including my own daughter, we're spending the year in Israel, partially in Jerusalem this year, had to come home early, were torn away from the state of Israel, not because of anything Israel-centered, but because of the COVID era. We could not get on a plane tomorrow and go. Because of that, Yom Yerushalayim has extra special significance to me today, because I recognize again the wonder before it became politicized, before some of the very real challenges that still presents Israel on a moral and pragmatic level when it comes to figuring out proper solutions to the conflict. Before all of that materialized, there were Jews singing, dancing with Israeli flags and the Magen David, David's shield, once again defending the city of Jerusalem. I identify with that return because I can't right now. And I identify with the ache that came before it because I can right now. And on a day when I could not be in Jerusalem even if I wanted to, I said Hallel this morning with a full heart, hoping and waiting for the day when I can step foot on her stones again. So I wish you, whether this day is complicated for you, ecstatic for you, traumatic for you, today I wish you a day of Yom Yerushalayim where you think about your own personal connection to the city of our people, where you imagine the next time you'll be able to be there, whatever brings you there, and that you can at least find some joy in knowing that when this crisis is over, should you be able to put the funds together, you could purchase the ticket, get on the plane, and make that aliyah up to the city of gold. And so maybe we should all sing Yerushalayim Shel Zahav together. Avir harim salul kayayin, kareach oranim, nisa beruach ha'arbaim, im kol pa'amonim, etc. On the first verse, let's go to the chorus. Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, v'shel nechoshet, v'shel or, halo lechol shirayich, ahani kinor, kinor. And as we will say the words of the Kabbalist tonight as we sing Lecha Dodi, words that were both a poem to Shabbat and to Jerusalem as they wrote it up in Tzfat, hoping that Jerusalem would one day be bathed in splendor again. Jerusalem, we think of you today from a distance, and we look forward to returning to you sooner rather than later. That's my Shabbat message to you on this Yom Yerushalayim Shabbat Shalom. If you want to stick with me for a short meditation, you may do so. But to everyone else, Shabbat Shalom and goodbye. Many of you know that some of the music that I most enjoy singing and bringing to the community these days is by Nathaniel Goldberg, this Israeli songwriter and lyricist who wrote some of the music that we use in Hamalot and all throughout our community. He has a beautiful tune to the opening line of the Psalms leading into Kabbalat Shabbat. Nekadma fanav betoda. We will receive God's face, actually her face, the Shechina's face, or Shabbat's face, betoda, in gratitude. It's feminine. We'll receive her face. His face. Nekadma fanav betoda. We'll receive God's face in gratitude. Bizmirot narialo. In joy, in song, we will cry out to him. Nathaniel, actually, that's why I got confused before, loves to play with the gender of that verse and has a version of that song where it's both masculine and feminine, bringing in the Kabbalistic notion of the masculine and feminine image of God. Our image of God should certainly not be uniquely gendered in one way or the other. So he sings it Nekadma fanav betoda, masculine, bizmirot naria la, feminine, that we will reach out to her. So it goes like this. Nekadema, nekadema fanav betoda, nekadema, nekadema fanav betoda, bizmirot nariala, bizmirot nariala. That's the whole song. He sings it over and over again, and it leads to just a tremendous crescendo in your heart, even though it's the same words and same tune over and over again. And I was thinking about what could be deeper about that line, and that's going to be the source of the meditation, that perhaps it's only when we approach him or her, God's masculine presence, God's feminine presence, or one another with todah, with gratitude. That we can approach the notion of zmira, of singing out with joy. We have to front gratitude in order to achieve joy. If we approach a situation with harumph, with how come I haven't gotten mine, with where are my needs being met, it's very hard to get to zmira. But when we start with todah, with acknowledgement of our blessings, of what others have done for us, then we can open up our mouths and our hearts and sing out to the Holy One and reach out to one another. So with that in mind, I want to ask you to close your eyes. Start to feel your body settle and get beautifully and wondrously heavy. I know we have all sorts of mixed messages in our society about the size and the shape and the weight of our bodies. Not to overly simplify that, but sometimes we deserve to feel the entire weight of our bodies as only beautiful and joyful, as it descends, being pulled down by gravity into a very serene weightiness. Try to unlock all the places that are tense. Take your brow and make it unfurrowed. Make your eyeballs fall heavy in the socket. Unclench your jaw. Let your shoulders sag. And have your feet feel like they are magnetically being pulled into the ground below it. Bizmirot narialo. Bizmirot nariala. Our goal is to cry out in joyful song to him or to her. Allow your mind to be flexible and malleable about who the him and the her are in this meditative notion. It could be God. It could be the Shekhinah. It could be Melech HaOlam, the ruler of the universe. It could be any him or her in your life, or even in it, with respect to which or with respect to whom you would like to offer a zemer, a joyful song, but you're blocked. There's an obstacle in the way. You think the obstacle might be them, their attitude, or if it's inanimate, the circumstances in life that are stopping you from singing out joy to reality. To whom do you want to offer a song but can't? To what beloved or partner or Holy One do you wish you could author a zemer, a joyful praise, and sing it out, but you can't? Perhaps the recipe is nekadma fanav betoda. Start with gratitude. Start with acknowledgement of what is rather than what isn't. Start with humility. Nekadma fanav. Put first todah. Thank you. I have so much. My needs are met. I have enough. When we go through the door of Todah, the room on the other side is so much richer and ready for Zmirah, for singing. So watch yourself in your mind's eye entering this Shabbat with Todah, and then filling this Shabbat with Zmirah, with song, with praise, with elation. Nekadema, Nekadema fana betodah, Nekadema, Nekadema fana betodah, Bizmirod nariala, Bizmirot nariala. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, and I say Namaste and Shabbat Shalom.